Hey, thanks for checking out Nuts and Bolts with Tone, and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about a 7.3 powerstroke. So this vehicle has fuel in the coolant. It is it's a common problem on this engine, and it's a common failure. So it's pretty much like a certain failure that is the cause. And in this video we're gonna talk about it, and I'm gonna show you how to take care of it, how to fix it, and what the remedy is. The only thing I'm not gonna show you, and I didn't do it on this one, I'm gonna tell you about it, is how to pinpoint. All right, so if you have a 7.3 powerstroke and it comes in, or it's yours, whatever, and you have fuel in the coolant, all right, if it's in there long enough, it will eventually push past the cap. So it will fill all the way up to the top of the bottle, because it'll just keep on adding fuel to the coolant, because the fuel system is around 60-ish pounds of fuel, and the cooling system is like 16. And so that 60 pounds is going to push into the cooling system, and that's how come you get fuel in the coolant and not coolant in the fuel. And so, and it will eventually just keep filling up and filling up. Your degas bottle will crack, your cap will go bad, the rubber inside, because the petroleum in the fuel will just destroy all the rubber. If it's in there long enough, all of your hoses will swell up really bad. Really, I mean, if you get any petroleum inside of any rubber components, you're supposed to replace all of them. It would be the same thing as if you got any oil, any type of oil product in your brake system, in your hydraulic brake system. If that happened, you would need to replace every single thing that had any sort of rubber or rubber seal in it. Wheel cylinders, calipers, brake lines, anything, you know, metering valves, it doesn't matter. If it has any sort of a rubber seal, you'd have to replace it. So anyways, so on this vehicle, we had like a couple inches of fuel floating on top of the coolant, and the failure, the reason for this is the injector cup. So the injector cup will go bad. You'll get a hole, a crack, something like that. And what will happen is the fuel will leak down into the cooling system. And as you'll see, the cooling system, so the cups are about that big, and about that much of it at the top seals to the head, and then there's a chamber about that long that is nothing but just straight coolant, and then there's a very small section about that big where it seals around the edge, and then it bottoms out at the bottom, and then the injector tip goes through the hole into the combustion chamber, and so the fuel will leak down and go into the cooling system. And so in this one here, I knew it was cups. Normally, you know, if you're trying to pinpoint it or whatever, this is the second time I've done this, and it didn't really matter which one. We were doing all of them. You would recommend all of them, and this customer opted to do all, and then so we're doing all the hoses, and in this case, I'll explain it in a minute, but so in this case, and the other thing you have to do is you have that fuel in the coolant. Well, no matter how much you work that cooling system, there's always the little bit of fuel that's going to be in there. So, and there's not really any specific procedure that is guaranteed to work every time. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to let you know what you should do. And what I'm going to do is, what you have to do is you have to take the starter off. All right. So just unbolt the starter, 2 bolts, hang it off to the side, leave the cables connected. And there's a block plug on both sides of the block, about this far up from the oil pan. All right, it's going to be a square drive. It's going to be a quarter drive. So, so use that and break that plug loose. Now, even if you have drained the cooling system, when the cooling system is empty, you've drained the radiator, taken the hoses off, everything, there is still a lot of coolant in the block. And so just be prepared when you take the plugs out of both sides, you're going to get a coolant bath. There's really no way to get out of it. I mean, it's going to come out at an angle like this, and it's out of a hole like that. So there's no way around it. I mean, you're going to pull that plug out. Really, the best thing to do is just try to pull that plug out and get out of the way, because it's going to just spray out. And you got to take both sides out. So in this case, what I'm going to do is we're gonna replace the injector sleeves, and we're going to replace all the hoses, and I'm going to fill up the whole cooling system with water once. I'm going to drain it, and then I'm going to fill it up with like a simple green solution, and I'm going to drain it. Then I'm going to drain it, and then I'm going to fill it up with water a couple more times, and then from there coolant. And we'll see how it looks after I do the water a couple times. And I'm going to take the degas bottle out and put some hot simple green in there. The customer doesn't want to replace the bottle right now, even though it's cracked, and so we're going to take care of all that. And so now the way that you would check this is, and in just a little bit, you'll see what it all looks like. But the way that you would test this is you would remove the injectors and have nothing but all the cups in, all right? And you're going to wipe them out, clean them out, all right? Dry them really, really good, get everything out of them. And then you're going to pump up the cooling system. And then you're going to look real carefully, and you're going to see a cylinder that is damaged. This one here had damaged O-rings on number 2 cylinder, the front on the driver's side. So that's another. You can look at the O-rings to see. Fuel will eat up O-rings. So you can look at it. You can look at that and see. Sometimes you'll see it that way. And so anyways, so in this one, we're just replacing all of them. We didn't try to pinpoint which one. In mine, it was number 2 was the bad one. But like I said, I didn't pressurize it. You're not going to see that. But I show you how to remove them and how to install them. So it's really important, and also making sure that you get this, that you flush it and you get the fuel out of it, because if you have any fuel left, the fuel will float and it will make its way to the top. And so then you'll have fuel floating in the bottle. So this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to check it out. And then we're going to repair it, and we're going to get it all sealed up. So join me. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. So we got this adjusting nut here. This is what forces the cup out. So we're gonna roll this nut all the way up. It's tight quarters here, so I'm trying to explain this the best I can to be able to see. But so then my tool has a hex here, 17 millimeter. And then you got this big sucker here, which is a 32 millimeter. And then you got these threads. All right, so what you do is you put a glob of grease in the bottom of the hole to keep, I'll show you what the cup looks like, but you will do that so that the debris doesn't get into the engine. So what we're gonna do, I've already done 2 and 4. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna put this in the hole, and this part of it right here, this centers it over the injector bore. So we're gonna just put this in the hole, use the tool to center it, and then we're gonna tighten that down. Gotta crank on this pretty good to get it in there. Otherwise it'll just pull out, which it'll probably pull out the first time, because seems like every time I do it, I don't crank it down far tight enough. Once it starts to bite, you'll feel it. And then you just have to go tighter and tighter. You have to really push down on this hard to get it to bite. Thought the 1/2 inch would bite better. I was using a 3/8 up until now. All right, so it's not the greatest of angles. So this is what I was using up until now. Try this way. ideally put a Prybar up against here. That would really get it to bite. There we go. Now it's biting. Still got to turn it quite a bit once it bites. And this is hard to turn. Alright. There's that. Alright. So now we're gonna run this net down. And it's gonna go up against that plate. And that plate is gonna be the pivot point. So then we got this deep 32 millimeter. And you'll feel it. Pretty sure it broke loose. Give it just a little more because I feel like it broke loose on me. If it breaks loose, then you just got to do the whole thing over. And it'll be difficult to turn all the way out. You'll be like, I still feel like it pulled on me. If so, you'll be able to see what it looks like. So, and you would think that it would just come out once you pulled the sleeve a little bit. You would think it would just pull right out, but it does not. So there is success right there. All right, so you can see, try to get the light here. So you can see where the tool bit into the cup right here. And this is what you could see. There wasn't a whole lot more that we could have went. So that's about all you need. This tool is designed to give you exactly what you need to pull these sleeves. So this is what it looks like right here. We're going to call this success. So you can see here, I'll show you when we put it back together, but you can see where, I'll have to look it up. I haven't done these in a while, but there's Loctite here and Loctite here. And then the rest is just clean and dry. So you can see the brass right here, all the pieces of brass in there. So we have the grease here, and you see there's no brass. That means that nothing came through. So we're gonna call that a win. So we'll do one more. Let me get this out. Actually, it's been like 5 or 6 years since I've done this. Alright, that's good enough. Alright, so now hopefully that grease that's in there isn't gonna mess up doing this, getting this thing to bite. All right, we're gonna get a bigger ratchet. All right, so here we go. So when you have fuel in the coolant, the first thing that you want to do is pull out all the injectors. And if you're trying to decipher which cylinder, if you're only going to do one sleeve, because usually the sleeve is what fails, what you want to be looking for is the O-rings to be doing that, okay? And so that showed me that number 2 cylinder is the one that had the leaking sleeve. The other thing that you'll see is right here, some O-ring piece comes out with the injector. So I kind of looked at all the O-rings. I didn't really see anything. However, I know that there's an issue right there. I had another issue with this injector here. So you really want to inspect these injectors. You lay them all out the way that they come out. And here we go, what it looks like when you've removed one of the sleeves. Kind of looks like that. And then you'll see the grease in the end of the sleeve showing you that you sealed off the sleeve and you didn't get any material down in the engine. Because as you can see right here, all that brass, so there's a lot in there, and the grease kind of catches it. You can see a lot in there and a lot in there. So this all started with fuel in the coolant. This thing had about 2 inches of fuel on top of the coolant. So you want to do all of that, and then what it's going to take to fix it is you're going to have to get all new O-ring kits. I recommend only doing Ford. So here's what an O-ring kit looks like, and there's the part number. And then here's a bag of sleeves. And it requires green Loctite. And when we get ready to install this, I'll show you how you do it and what it looks like. So that's what you're going to need to do this job. And you're also going to need to replace all of the rubber You really should replace all the rubber. You're going to have to remove the starter because there's a block plug on both sides of the engine that you have to remove, and then you're going to want to fill up the block full of like a water with a simple green, and then you're going to run it through the engine, and then you're going to drain the block again, and then you're probably going to then you're going to fill it full of water a couple times. You're going to have to pull the degas bottle out. You really should replace it, but you're going to have to pull the degas bottle out, and you're going to have to rinse it out really good. So this is what this looks like, and we'll see some more as we get into this. All right, so initially what we were doing, I've only done this once before, but what we were doing was taking a screwdriver and putting the tip in grease and then putting the grease down the hole. And so I was sitting here last night and I came up with a better idea. So what you want to do is find an extension, like a 3/8 extension that fits down in the hole perfectly, and just put grease on the tip of it, and that way you can touch it right to the center of the hole of the injector sleeve, and that will actually help out, and that will be a lot better than a screwdriver, because a screwdriver you tend to get it all over the cup and then it makes a mess. And so this is going to be a lot easier. Let's get it. All right, so here we are on number 5. So I wasn't sure how much room there was, but now here we are the next morning. I've got it set up. I've already got the tool bit into the cup, and I'm actually tightening it down to pull the sleeve. But you can see right here that there is plenty of room to get this out with the HVAC box in. Haven't taken it out, haven't moved anything. So this is the perfect size, and it's the perfect length. It's a little bit tricky to get it in, to get it hammered in, but all you need is a little sledge, and I'll show you how we're gonna do that when we install them. But just right here, just showing you that you have room to get this out without pulling the HVAC box. Here we go. The only other thing that I haven't shown you yet, so here we are, we have the sleeve out. Now this thing is in there really tight. So what you're gonna need is a vise. And you're gonna have to crank it down pretty good. Just be careful, because remember your tool is in there and you don't want it to be binding. So we're gonna crank it down. And something like this Capri, long box works really good, 17 millimeter. So we're just going to, you're going to turn it, and you're going to see more brass come out. You're just going to turn it to get it out. And you may have to readjust your vise a couple times. And there we go, we're out. Right, so here we are at All Data. I'm just going to show you. So basically what they want you to use is like a wire brush like that to clean out the bore. You're going to put the Loctite in those 2 spots, and I'll show you when we do it. I'll actually put the Loctite on there. You're just going to put it in and then hit it with a hammer. Hit it with a rubber mallet is what they say. So that's all you do for the Loctite. And the Loctite, it requires green Loctite 620 or higher. So I'm gonna have to wait. We ordered some 680. All we have in the shop is 609. So make sure you use the correct stuff, because that would really suck for it to leak, all because you had slightly less of a product. All right, so here we go. It's gonna be hard to see. I'm gonna attempt to show you what it looks like. Oh, there you go. You can see it. All right, so you can see down the hole. So the injector sleeve bottoms out on the bottom, and then it seals around the outside edge of that very bottom chamber. And then right here at the bottom of the upper portion is where the Loctite seals, where the sleeve seals on top. And then you can see that all that below there is coolant. So there's literally coolant in there, and that's what cools the injector. And that's how it cools the injector, to keep it cool all the time. And that's the purpose of the sleeve, is to keep the injector cool. So we'll do the rest of these. I'll show you. I got this one clean, but I'm waiting on the Loctite. Make sure it's clean. dry it with a rag, and make sure you don't have any lint in there. Red rags are not really supposed to be used on diesel because they leave lint behind, and one little tiny piece of lint can destroy a diesel engine. Another tip that I want to give you is when you're doing your grease for the injector sleeve removal process, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you have the bottom of the sleeve clean, because if you don't and there's diesel fuel, then the grease won't stick to the fuel, and then it won't stick, and so then you end up with grease on the side, and then you have to wipe it all away and then clean the grease. So we'll get all this apart, get it all clean, and get some new sleeves in once I get the Loctite later today. All right, here we go. One more tip for you, and this is pretty important. So when you're running these rags around, whether you're cleaning the injectors or whatever, you want to make sure that these little edges right here, what hold the rockers together, make sure that your rag doesn't get stuck, because you can mess this up and then cause a bad day for yourself, pop out and all kinds of stuff. So really be careful for that. And then the other thing that you want to do when you're waiting, just stick a rag in all your holes and shove it down there. Just kind of keep anything from falling in the hole, because that's inside the engine. So just a little tech tip there. And then bungee cords are your friends. Use bungee cords to pull things out of the way. And over here, oh, I know, one more service tip. When you're doing injectors or anything on these, what you want to do is I always take the map sensor off. I always take the map sensor off when I'm working on it. And that way, I move the map sensor over. It's laying over here. So I just lay it across, because remember, I don't disconnect that hose. So you can use these 3 studs here to hold the heater hoses out of the way. And look at how much room there is here. Everything is out of the way. So just a little tech tip for you there. And then you can drop your compressor down the front of the motor like this. And then that gives you a lot of room, and then that way you have access to all of this whole head here, this injector, if you're just doing injectors, whatever, and you have a lot of room. Kind of what you want to do there, just to kind of keep things out of your way. All right, so here we are. We finally got the correct Loctite. So we're here with green 620. Initially we had N Loctite brand, because that's what Ford wants, and we don't want to take a chance. We had Loctite 609, and we just didn't want to chance it. And then initially we ordered some, and it came with 680. And we just wanted to make sure that we had the correct Loctite, because if Ford specifies 620, there's a reason why they want this. And this is a pretty important tool, pretty important part. So this can cause a lot of damage. Get fuel in your cooling system and destroy this engine. It'll destroy it. So anyway, so here's the new sleeve. So we're going to trying to think of the best way. All right. All right, so here we're going to put this on. So if you look at the old one, you can see the 2 clean spots, and that's where it seals. So you want to put it right on the edge. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to just mirror this. It's funny, because in the picture of where to put it is not where this thing wears. So let's get this going. All right, here we go. So you can hear that sound when it bottoms out. Then just make sure that you wipe up all your excess Loctite, because you don't want any Loctite in here. This doesn't dry extremely fast, but you just want to make sure that you get it all cleaned up. I would recommend that you do it after you do each one, that you wipe it out. Just looking at how deep the so you can kind of hear that sound where it bottoms out. It's really important that you listen. It's not about how deep, because this thing only goes like, I'm guessing this thing only goes about maybe a quarter of an inch, and that's it. So make sure you wipe off all your excess Loctite. All right, so we have installed a sleeve, and that's how you do it. All right, so here's a tip I just discovered. So what you do is you have a very thin area in the cup between the tool, and just take a small screwdriver and stick it in there, and it'll hold it. And so you can do this and position it down in the hole, get it where you want it, pull your screwdriver out, and then hammer the sleeve in. And that way it doesn't fall, and you don't take a chance on your Loctite rubbing off and it losing its seal. So there you go. So thanks for checking out the video. I hope you learned something. I hope this was informative for you, showing you something that maybe you've done before. Maybe you've never done it before. Maybe you've never done it before. Maybe you have done it before. Hell, maybe you've done it before and you have a little tip or trick for me. Hey, I don't care how many times I've done something. There is always somebody that can give me a tip. So feel free to leave a comment below if you have a tip for me, or if I helped you out. Also hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit that bell. You get notified of all my future content, which you're definitely going to want to see. And again, thanks for watching my video. Thanks for checking out Nuts and Bolts with Tone. Also, one last thing before I forget, check me out on Instagram at Nuts and Bolts with Tone. Daily life as a mechanic, tool tidbits, tech tips, all kinds of stuff. Just gas, diesel, whatever, and I'll just bring you through it. So, see you next time.